In my last life, I died on a prison cot at 11 minutes past 3 in the morning. The fluorescent light above me never turned off. It just buzzed like a trapped hornet until the sound became the only thing I knew. The poison they put in my dinner worked slowly. It started as a numbness in my fingers, then a coldness crawling up my arms, and finally a tightening in my chest that made every breath feel like glass being dragged through my lungs. My name was Ethan Cross. I was 29 years old, and I was murdered because I loved the wrong woman. Vanessa Cross, the Ice Queen of Blackstone Group, the woman whose name appeared in every business magazine, always accompanied by words like visionary, ruthless, unstoppable. She was my wife. For 6 years, I was the man who stood behind her at every press conference, the one who smiled when reporters called me Mr. Vanessa Cross, and asked if I felt emasculated living in her shadow. I never minded. I believed in her. I believed in us. What? A stupid word. Us. I built her empire from the shadows. Before I met Vanessa, I had already founded Cross Holdings, a private investment firm that controlled assets worth just under $200 million. I never put my name on anything. I never needed to. I moved money through shell companies, acquired distressed assets, flipped entire portfolios, all while the world thought I was just a quiet man with a trust fund and no ambition. When I married Vanessa, I saw a future where we would rule together, so I liquidated half my holdings and poured the capital into Blackstone Group. I gave her my connections, my strategies, my silence, and for a while, it worked. Blackstone grew. Vanessa became a titan, but I became invisible. The first sign of rot came with Marcus Holt. He was the CFO, a man with perfect teeth and a laugh that sounded like he was always sharing a private joke at your expense. Vanessa hired him 2 years into our marriage. I didn't protest. I trusted her judgment. By the 5th year, Marcus had his own office next to hers, and I was being asked to sit in the visitor's chair when I came by. By the 6th year, he was the one attending the board dinners while I stayed home with a cold dinner and a colder text message. Don't wait up. I should have seen it, but I was too busy believing that love meant enduring. The night everything ended was our 3rd wedding anniversary. Vanessa insisted on a grand celebration at the Sterling Hotel, all marble and champagne and 200 guests who didn't know my name. Marcus approached me near the end of the evening with a stack of documents and a sympathetic smile. Ethan, we need your signature on these. Just a formality. Some shareholder restructuring Vanessa asked me to handle. He handed me a pen. I looked at the papers. 15% of Blackstone Group's voting shares, my shares, would be transferred to Vanessa in my last life. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. Then I thought about how hard Vanessa had been working, how stressed she seemed, how maybe this would make her happy. I signed. I signed away the last piece of leverage I had. And 6 months later, when Marcus had fabricated enough evidence to make it look like I was selling company secrets to a competitor, I had no power left to defend myself. The trial was a formality. Vanessa testified that she had suspected my disloyalty for some time. Marcus presented forged emails, doctored account statements, and a fake witness who claimed I had approached him in a parking garage with a USB drive. My lawyer barely tried. I later found out Marcus had paid him too. The judge gave me 12 years. I served 4 months before they killed me, the night I died. The prison guard who brought my food tray was new. He set it down without meeting my eyes and walked away too quickly. I should have noticed. I didn't. The first bite tasted normal. The 5th bite burned. By the 10th, my hands were trembling too hard to hold the spoon. I fell off the cot and hit the concrete floor with my cheek pressed against the cold stone. Through the buzzing light, I heard a voice outside my cell door. Not the new guard, but a senior officer I recognized. He was on the phone, speaking quietly, probably thinking I couldn't hear. Yeah, it's done. Tell Mrs. Cross the package has been delivered. Mrs. Cross, not Marcus, not some anonymous enemy, my wife. The woman I had loved enough to erase myself for. She had ordered my death as casually as she ordered lunch. That was the last thing I understood before the cold reached my heart and everything stopped. I opened my eyes. For 3 full seconds, I couldn't move. The air around me was warm and smelled like expensive perfume and champagne. I heard music, a string quartet playing something soft and meaningless. I heard laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the low murmur of wealthy people congratulating themselves on being wealthy. I was standing in the grand ballroom of the Sterling Hotel, a Chandelier the size of a small car hung above me. My hands were empty. My suit was navy blue. The same suit I had worn on my 3rd anniversary, on the night I signed my life away. And there, walking toward me with a stack of documents and that same sympathetic smile, was Marcus Holt. "Ethan, we need your signature on these. Just a formality. Some shareholder restructuring Vanessa asked me to handle." The exact same words, the exact same tone, the exact same moment, something cold and sharp, unspooled inside my chest. Not fear, not panic, but a kind of clarity so absolute it felt like the first breath after drowning. I was back. I didn't know how or why, but I was back at the precise instant when my destruction had begun, and this time, I knew every name, every lie, every account number, every betrayal that was coming. Marcus held out the pen. His fingers were perfectly manicured in my last life. I took it and signed without reading past the first paragraph. This time, I reached out, slowly, and took the pen from his hand. He smiled wider. He thought I was still the same fool. I looked at the documents, really looked at them, scanning the clauses that I had ignored in my last life. There it was, Article 4.3. The signatory hereby irrevocably transfers all voting rights associated with the listed shareholdings to Vanessa Cross, with full authority to exercise said rights in perpetuity. I read it twice. Then I looked up at Marcus, and I smiled back. No. The word landed in the space between us like a stone dropped into still water. Marcus's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before he recovered. "Ethan, I understand these legal documents can be confusing, but I assure you this is just standard." "No." I said it again, quieter this time. Somehow, it sounded louder. "I'm not signing anything tonight, or any other night. You can tell Vanessa that if she wants my shares, she can ask me herself, in person, without her errand boy." The words errand boy hit Marcus harder than anything else I could have said. The polished surface of his composure cracked, his jaw tightened, his knuckles went white around the documents. But I was already walking away, heading toward the bar with the easy stride of a man who had nothing to lose, because I had already lost everything once, and I had no intention of losing it again. Behind me, I felt his gaze burning into my back. Let him stare, let him wonder. Tonight was the first night of the rest of their nightmares. I reached the bar and ordered a whiskey. As the bartender poured, a strange sensation passed through me, like a cold current moving just beneath my skin. Then text appeared in the corner of my vision, crisp and black, as if someone had typed it directly onto my retinas. Black archive system activated. Host identity confirmed. Ethan Cross. Regression memory module. Online. Wealth vision module. Online. Detecting betrayal records. 2 primary targets identified. Vanessa Cross. Betrayal level, Alpha. 1. Crimes, conspiracy to defraud, false testimony. Order of termination, Marcus Holt. Betrayal level, Alpha. 1. Crimes, fraud, forgery, industrial espionage, conspiracy to commit murder. Current mission, revenge protocol engaged. Rewards will be dispersed upon completion of key nodes. I blinked, and the text dissolved like smoke. No one around me had noticed anything. The string quartet played on. The rich laughed and drank and schemed. They had no idea they were sharing a room with a dead man who had just climbed out of his own grave. I took a long sip of whiskey. It burned going down, but I welcomed the burn. It reminded me I was alive, really alive. For the next hour, I drifted through the party like a ghost. Several board members glanced at me with the usual mixture of curiosity and pity. A few of them had voted to remove me from the company in my last life. One of them, an older man named Gerald Finch who controlled about 8% of Blackstone stock, had actually apologized to me in private after the vote. Not that it changed anything. Tonight, he nodded at me with something almost like respect. Word had already spread about my refusal to sign the papers. News traveled fast in rooms full of sharks. Vanessa was holding court on the far side of the ballroom. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Her dark hair pulled back in a severe knot. Her face as unreadable as a marble statue. She was speaking with 3 investors, her gestures precise, her smile measured to the millimeter. For one brief moment, her gaze flicked across the room and met mine. I didn't look away, neither did she. There was something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in my last life. Or maybe I had seen it and chosen to ignore it. A flicker of something that wasn't quite cold, not warmth. Exactly. More like curiosity, uncertainty, as if I were a puzzle piece that had suddenly stopped fitting. I raised my glass in a mock toast and turned away before she could react. The party finally wound down. Around midnight, I retrieved my coat from the check room and walked out into the cool night air. The valet had already brought my car around. A black sedan, understated, the kind of car that didn't attract attention in my last life. I had always driven the sports cars Vanessa picked out for me. This time, I was done being her accessory. I had just reached for the door handle when I heard footsteps behind me. Quick, sharp, the sound of expensive heels on asphalt. Ethan, Vanessa's voice, I knew it. Better than my own heartbeat. Low, controlled, with that razor edge of authority that had made her famous in boardrooms across the city in my last life. Hearing her call my name had always made something in my chest loosen, soften. This time, I felt nothing but a cold, steady readiness. I turned. She was standing a few feet away, coatless despite the chill, her breath misting in the air, in the glow of the parking lot lights. She looked almost human, almost. "You didn't sign the documents," she said. It wasn't a question. "No, I didn't. Marcus said you called him an errand boy." "I did." A pause. She was searching my face for something. Anger, hurt, weakness. I gave her nothing. The expression I wore was the same one I used to reserve for business negotiations with hostile parties. Polite, impassive, unreachable. "I'm not going to ask why you changed your mind," she said slowly. "You're entitled to your decisions. But I want you to know that the restructuring was for the good of the company. It wasn't personal. It wasn't personal." The words almost made me laugh. In my last life, she had used those exact words when she testified against me in court, her voice steady and professional while she painted me as a traitor. "It's not personal, Your Honor. I'm simply stating the facts." "I'm sure it wasn't," I said. Another silence. This one stretched longer. I started to turn back toward my car, but she stepped forward and held out her hand. I hadn't noticed until now that she was carrying something. A small insulated lunch bag, the kind you'd take to an office. "Here," she said. "I almost forgot. I didn't take it." "What is that?" "Lunch for tomorrow." She pressed it toward me, and for the first time since I had known her, she looked almost awkward, uncertain. "You've been forgetting to eat lately. I noticed, so I had something prepared." "Had something prepared?" Not I made something. Not I was worried about you. Just I had something prepared. But still, this had never happened in my last life. Not once. Vanessa Cross did not bring anyone lunch. Vanessa Cross did not notice when anyone ate or didn't eat. I reached out and took the bag from her hand. Our fingers brushed for half a second. Her skin was cold. "Your wife made it," she said. I froze. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a gunshot. "Your wife made it." She was my wife. Why would she refer to herself in the third person? "What did you say?" My voice came out flatter than I intended. Vanessa's expression flickered again. That same strange uncertainty I had seen in the ballroom. For just a moment, she looked like someone who had spoken words she didn't fully understand herself. I said, "Your wife made it." She shook her head slightly, as if clearing a fog. "I don't know why I said it like that. It's been a long night. Just take the lunch, Ethan." She turned and walked back toward the hotel before I could respond. Her posture was perfect, her stride unbroken, but I saw her hand reach up and touch her temple, just once, as if she had a headache. I stood in the parking lot, holding the insulated bag, watching the Ice Queen of Blackstone Group retreat into the golden light of the hotel lobby. The bag was light in my hand. Through the fabric, I could feel the faint warmth of whatever was inside. I got into my car and set the bag on the passenger seat. For a long moment, I just stared at it. "Your wife made it." In my last life, Vanessa had never said those words. She had never brought me lunch. She had never looked at me with anything resembling uncertainty. Everything about tonight was wrong, and wrong in my world meant danger, or it meant opportunity. I intended to find out which. I opened the bag. Inside was a simple glass container with a chicken and avocado sandwich, neatly cut into triangles. Tucked beside it was a folded piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it. The handwriting was Vanessa's, precise, elegant, exactly the same as the signatures I had seen on 1,000 corporate documents. But the words were not corporate. "I know you. Don't believe me right now, but I'm starting to remember things too. Things I don't understand. Things I wish weren't true. Please don't freeze me out completely. Your wife. I read the note 3 times. The paper trembled slightly in my hand. Not from fear, but from the sheer impossibility of what I was reading. Vanessa Cross, the woman who had ordered my death, was writing me notes about remembering things. Could she be regressing too? No. If she had full regression like me, she would be acting differently. She wouldn't be confused. She would be scheming, or hiding, or striking first. This felt like something else, something partial, fragmented. The black archive system stirred in the back of my mind. A cold pulse like a second heartbeat. New text rolled across my vision. Anomaly detected. Target Vanessa Cross exhibiting memory fragmentation. Possible system-imposed penalty. Analysis. This host is not the only one being judged. Continue observation. Revenge protocol remains active. System-imposed penalty. The words sank into me like stones into deep water. The black archive system wasn't just giving me a second chance. It was punishing her too. Making her remember just enough to feel the weight of what she had done, but not enough to escape it. If that was true, then the system was far more than a tool. It was a kind of justice I had never believed in. I set the note down on the passenger seat. Outside, the city lights blurred past as I drove toward the penthouse I had shared with Vanessa for 3 years. The same penthouse that, in my last life, I had been escorted out of in handcuffs while she watched from the balcony. Tonight, I would walk through the front door as if I still belonged there. Tomorrow, I would begin the real work. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, a message from a number I recognized. My grandfather's attorney, the one who had handled Victor Cross's estate. In my last life, my grandfather had died 2 months from now, and his $300 million trust had been frozen in probate for years, long enough that I was already in prison by the time it cleared. Marcus and Vanessa had siphoned what they could before the courts locked it all down. But now I was ahead of the timeline. My grandfather was still alive, and his attorney was sending me a message I had never received in my last life. Ethan, your grandfather wants to meet. He says it's time to discuss the succession plan. Call me tomorrow morning. I pulled into the underground garage of the penthouse building and killed the engine. The sandwich sat on the passenger seat, still uneaten. The note lay beside it. And in my head, the black archive system's cold text pulsed one final time before fading. First node complete. Initial asset preserved. Reward unlocked. Full access to Blackstone Group hidden financial records. Use wisely. I smiled for the first time in what felt like 2 lifetimes. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had just been handed the keys to his enemy's vault. Tomorrow, I would meet my grandfather and claim my birthright. Tomorrow, I would open the Blackstone Group's hidden financial records and trace every dirty dollar Marcus had stolen. Tomorrow, the chess game would truly begin. But tonight, I would walk into the penthouse, look my wife in the eye, and say goodnight as if I were still the same man she had once been so eager to bury. She had no idea what was coming, and neither did Marcus. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. The mirrored walls reflected a man in a navy suit with cold eyes and a calm that ran deeper than any anger. Behind me, the garage was silent. Above me, 42 floors up, the Ice Queen waited in a penthouse she didn't yet know she had already lost. I pressed the button for the top floor. The doors closed, and somewhere in the vast, silent archive between worlds, a black cat turned a page. The penthouse elevator opened directly into the foyer, a design choice Vanessa had made when she bought the place, because she liked the drama of stepping straight from the lift into a room full of marble and mirrors. In my last life, I had always paused in that foyer, bracing myself for whatever mood she was in. Tonight, I walked through it without slowing down. The living room was empty. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spread out below us like a circuit board, all blinking lights and silent traffic. I could see my reflection in the glass, a man, in a navy suit, shoulders back, eyes steady. I barely recognized him. "You're late." Vanessa's voice came from the dining room. I followed it and found her sitting at the head of the long table, a single glass of white wine in front of her. She had changed out of the evening gown into a silk robe, her hair loose now around her shoulders. In my last life, this sight would have made me soften. I would have asked if she was tired, if she needed anything, if there was anything I could do to make her Night easier. The party went long, I said. I walked past her toward the hallway that led to the guest bedroom. I had no intention of sleeping in the master suite tonight, or any night. You're going to bed. It's late. Ethan, her voice stopped me with my hand on the hallway door. What happened tonight, with the documents? I turned back. She was looking at me over the rim of her wine glass. Her expression unreadable. The ice queen, through and through, but her fingers were tapping against the stem of the glass, a tell I had learned to read years ago. She was nervous. Vanessa Cross was never nervous. I decided not to sign. I said, "Is that a problem?" "It's not a problem. It's just," she paused, searching for words. "It's not like you. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think." The words landed harder than I intended, or maybe exactly as hard as I intended. Vanessa's tapping fingers went still. She opened her mouth as if to respond, then closed it. In the 6 years I had known her, I had never seen Vanessa Cross at a loss for words. Not once. "Good night, Vanessa." I went into the guest bedroom and closed the door behind me. The lock clicked with a sound that felt like a period at the end of a sentence. On the other side of the door, there was only silence. No footsteps, no protest, just the quiet hum of a penthouse that had never really felt like a home. I didn't sleep. Not that night. There was too much to plan, and I had a lifetime of lost time to make up for. I sat on the edge of the guest bed with my laptop open and the black archive system's interface glowing faintly at the edges of my vision. The hidden financial records I had unlocked earlier were already loading. Spreadsheets, wire transfer logs, shell company registrations. The system organized them for me, highlighting suspicious patterns in red. Marcus had been busy. In the past 18 months alone, he had funneled just over $14 million out of Blackstone Group through a web of subsidiaries that all traced back to a holding company registered in the Cayman Islands. The holding company, I discovered after digging through 3 layers of ownership, was controlled by Iron Ridge Capital, a private equity firm known for hostile takeovers. Marcus wasn't just stealing. He was preparing to deliver Blackstone Group to a competitor on a silver platter. In my last life, I hadn't discovered this until the trial, when it was already too late to use the information. This time, I had it all: dates, account numbers, corresponding emails. The system had even flagged the timestamps on the wire transfers. Most of them occurred within 48 hours of board meetings where Vanessa had approved cost-cutting measures that mysteriously aligned with the stolen funds. She didn't know. That was the part that twisted in my chest like a knife. In my last life, I had believed she was part of the theft, part of the conspiracy from the beginning, but the system's analysis painted a different picture. Vanessa's signature appeared on none of the fraudulent documents. Her personal accounts showed no unusual deposits. She had testified against me. Yes, she had been cold and distant and complicit in my marginalization. But the actual financial crimes, the ones that got me sent to prison and ultimately killed, those belonged to Marcus alone. Vanessa had been his unwitting shield, and in my last life, she had probably realized the truth only after I was dead. The system confirmed it with a cold, clinical note: target Vanessa Cross. Secondary complicity, aware of emotional betrayal, unaware of criminal conspiracy. Penalty status, memory fragmentation active. She remembers enough to regret, not enough to atone. She remembers enough to regret. I stared at those words for a long time. In the parking lot, she had said, "Your wife made it." She had written, "I'm starting to remember things too." The system was punishing her by making her feel the edges of a truth she couldn't fully grasp. It was a crueler punishment than death, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. But I didn't have time to sort through feelings. Feelings were what had gotten me killed in my last life. This life was about action. I closed the laptop at 3 in the morning and lay back on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside the window, the city never slept. Neither would I. Not until this was finished. Morning came gray and cold. I woke to the smell of coffee drifting under the guest room door. When I walked into the kitchen, I found Vanessa already dressed for work, a cup in her hand, and another cup waiting on the counter. For me, "You're up early," she said. Her voice was measured, careful, as if she were speaking to a colleague she didn't quite trust. "I have a meeting." "With who?" I picked up the coffee and took a sip before answering. "My grandfather." Vanessa's eyebrows rose. In 6 years of marriage, she had met Victor Cross exactly once. At our wedding, He had pulled me aside afterward and told me, in his usual blunt way, that I was marrying a woman who saw me as a stepping stone. I had dismissed him as a bitter old man. He had been right. I didn't know you were in contact with him, Vanessa said. There are a lot of things you don't know about me. I took my coffee and left before she could respond. Victor Cross lived in a mansion on the north shore of the city, a 100-year-old stone estate that looked like it had been transplanted from the English countryside. The grounds were immaculate. The front door was oak and iron, heavy enough to stop a battering ram. When I rang the bell, it was opened by a butler who looked like he had been working here since the building was constructed. "Master Ethan," he said, stepping aside. "Your grandfather is in the study. He's been expecting you." The study smelled like old books and cigar smoke. Victor Cross sat behind a desk the size of a dining table. His white hair swept back, his eyes the same sharp gray as my own. He was 83 years old, but the man radiated a kind of contained power that made the leather chair he sat in look like a throne. "You look different," he said, studying me as I sat down across from him. "Something's changed. I've had some realizations about your wife, about everything." Victor nodded slowly. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick folder, dropping it onto the desk between us with a heavy thud. "The succession plan," he said. "I've been waiting for you to be ready. I thought it would take another 5 years, maybe 10, maybe never. If that woman kept her hooks in you." He tapped the folder with one gnarled finger. "But you're here now, and the look in your eyes tells me you're finally the man I hoped you'd become." I opened the folder. Inside were documents that represented $300 million in assets, real estate, investment portfolios, controlling stakes in half a dozen companies, and a trust that had been building compound interest since the day I was born. My grandfather hadn't just been wealthy. He had been building an empire in the shadows, waiting for the right heir. "There's more," Victor said. "The cross-holding shell network you set up years ago. I've been monitoring it. Impressive work. By the way, you never should have liquidated half of it for Vanessa, but the infrastructure is still there. The contacts are still active. If you wanted to rebuild, you could do it in weeks instead of years." I looked up from the documents. "You've been watching my investments." "I've been watching everything, including that rat Marcus Holt." Victor's expression hardened. "I have a dossier on him that would make your blood run cold, but I suspect you already know most of it. I know he's stealing from Blackstone. I know he's working for Iron Ridge Capital. I know he framed me, or will try to frame me, for industrial espionage." I paused. "What I don't know yet is how deep the conspiracy goes, whether Iron Ridge has moles inside Blackstone beyond Marcus." Victor leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Now you're thinking like a cross. The trust fund activates today. I'll have my attorneys transfer the first 50 million into your control by noon. The rest will follow in tranches." "But Ethan," he pointed at me, his expression suddenly serious. "Money is a tool. It's not a weapon. If you want to destroy your enemies, you need more than cash. You need leverage, you need timing, and you need the stomach to watch them suffer without flinching. I have all three." Victor studied me for a long moment. Whatever he saw in my face must have satisfied him, because he nodded once and pushed a small velvet box across the desk. "Your grandmother's ring. She wanted you to have it when you were ready to take over the family legacy, not when you were playing house with some corporate climber." I opened the box. Inside was a signet ring, heavy and old, engraved with the Cross family crest, 2 crossed swords beneath a rising sun. The gold was warm against my palm. "Put it on," Victor said, "and don't take it off. There are people in this city who will recognize that ring. Doors will open for you that have been closed for 30 years. I slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. By noon, the first 50 million was in my account. By 2 o'clock, I had reactivated the cross-holding shell network and begun moving assets into position. By 4 o'clock, I was sitting in a coffee shop across from the Blackstone Group headquarters, watching employees stream out of the building while I reviewed Marcus's latest financial activity on my tablet. The Black Archive system had been quiet since the morning, but as I scrolled through a particularly damning chain of emails between Marcus and an Iron Ridge executive, it pulsed to life again. Secondary betrayal detected. Additional conspirator identified. Gerald Finch. Crimes. Insider trading. Conspiracy to defraud. Accessory to fraud. Gerald Finch. The same Gerald Finch who had nodded at me with apparent respect at the anniversary party. The same Gerald Finch who, in my last life, had privately apologized after voting to remove me from the company. I had thought he was a coward with a guilty conscience. In reality, he was a co-conspirator who had been in on the scheme from the beginning. The system provided details. Finch controlled 8% of Blackstone's voting shares. He had been feeding Marcus information about board sentiment for over a year, and he had personally profited from the insider trading that occurred every time Marcus moved company funds. His total take. So far, just under $2 million. I saved the evidence to my secure drive and made a note. Finch wasn't the main target. Marcus was. But Finch would fall too, when the time came. In my last life, I had tried to fight my enemies one at a time. This time, I would let them gather in the same room and watch the ceiling collapse on all of them at once. My phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Clara Jiang. I got your number from the company directory. I know it's unusual to reach out like this, but there's something going on in the finance department that I think you should know about. Can we meet? Clara Jiang, the marketing director in my last life. She had been one of the few people at Blackstone who never looked at me with pity or contempt. She had even come to visit me once during the trial, before Vanessa's lawyers blocked all outside contact. I had never figured out why she had tried to help me. Maybe now I would find out. I typed back, tomorrow, 8 a.m., the Roasted Bean on 4th Street. Come alone. That evening, I returned to the penthouse to find Vanessa sitting in the living room with her laptop, surrounded by spreadsheets. She looked up when I entered, and for the first time since I had known her, she looked genuinely exhausted. Marcus submitted a proposal today, she said. He wants to restructure the finance department, cut costs. He's recommending we outsource half our accounting to a third-party firm. Let me guess, I said, hanging my coat. The third-party firm is connected to Iron Ridge Capital. Vanessa blinked. How do you know about Iron Ridge? How do you know about Iron Ridge? She hesitated. I've been looking into some irregularities, transfers that don't quite add up. They all seem to flow toward the same offshore accounts, and those accounts connect back to Iron Ridge. I was going to bring it up at the next board meeting. I walked over and sat down across from her. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Husband and wife, strangers who had shared a bed for 6 years without ever really knowing who the other person was. The man behind the irregularities is Marcus, I said. He's been stealing from the company for 18 months. He's working with Iron Ridge to execute a hostile takeover. And if you bring this up at the board meeting, he'll have enough warning to cover his tracks and blame someone else. Probably you, probably me. Vanessa's face went pale. You have proof. I have everything. Emails, wire transfer records, shell company registrations. He's been using your signature stamp to authorize the transfers. The one you keep in your desk drawer because you're too busy to sign everything yourself. She stared at me, her lips parted, but no words came out. I could see the realization hitting her in waves. The trust she had placed in Marcus, the access she had given him, the blind spot she had maintained because he was competent and charming and always told her exactly what she wanted to hear. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. After everything, why? I stood up and looked down at her. Because you're not my enemy. Vanessa, you were never my enemy. You were just the person who let my enemy get close enough to destroy me. And whether or not I forgive you for that is a question I haven't answered yet. But right now, we have the same target. Marcus Holt needs to fall, and when he does, I want you to be standing on the right side of the room. I left her, there with her spreadsheets and her shattered assumptions. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom again. But before I closed my eyes, I heard a soft knock on the door. Ethan, Vanessa's voice, muffled through the wood. The lunch I gave you last night, did you eat it? I looked at the insulated bag, still sitting on the dresser where I had left it. The sandwich was untouched. The note was still folded beside it. Not yet, I said. A long pause, then. I'll make you another one tomorrow. Footsteps retreated down the hallway. I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember the last time Vanessa had offered to make me anything. I couldn't. It had never happened. The next morning, I arrived at the Roasted Bean at 7:45. Clara Jiang was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of tea and a nervous expression. She was in her early 30s, sharp-eyed and professional. But this morning she looked like someone who hadn't slept well. Mr. Cross, she said as I sat down. Thank you for meeting me. Call me Ethan, and thank you for reaching out. What's going on in the finance department? She glanced around the coffee shop, then leaned in. I'm not in finance. I'm in marketing. But my team has been working on the quarterly earnings presentation, and the numbers the finance department gave us don't match the numbers in the internal reports I can see on the shared drive. When I asked Marcus about it, he told me it was a rounding error and not to worry about it. She paused. But it wasn't a rounding error. It was a discrepancy of almost $3 million. And you didn't go to Vanessa. I tried. She's been distracted lately. And Marcus has her ear. I was worried that if I pushed too hard, I'd be the one who ended up looking paranoid. Clara met my eyes. Then I heard about what happened at the anniversary party. How you refused to sign the restructuring documents. How you called Marcus an errand boy to his face. And I thought, maybe you're the one person in this company who isn't afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him. I said, I'm not afraid of anyone. And I already know about the missing money. What I need now is someone inside the company who can watch him without being obvious about it. Someone he won't see coming. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. What do you need me to do? I told her. For the next week, I fell into a rhythm. Every morning, I left the penthouse before Vanessa woke up. Every day, I worked from a rented office downtown, rebuilding Cross Holdings piece by piece, reactivating old contacts, moving capital into strategic positions. My grandfather's $50 million was just the beginning. I had access to my own investment networks now, and money attracted money. Within 7 days, I had leveraged the initial capital into a controlling position in 3 smaller firms that did business with Blackstone Group. None of them knew they were now owned by the same man. Marcus, meanwhile, was accelerating his plan. The system flagged 4 more wire transfers in the span of a week, totaling another $2 million. He was getting bolder. The quarterly board meeting was approaching, and I suspected he intended to make his move there. In my last life, that meeting had been where Vanessa officially announced my removal from any company role. This time, it would be where Marcus's entire scheme came crashing down. But there was a complication that came in the form of a lunch bag. Every single day, without fail, a new insulated bag appeared on the kitchen counter. Before I left the penthouse, each one contained a sandwich, a piece of fruit, and a folded note in Vanessa's handwriting. I never ate the sandwiches, but I read every note. Day 1. I remember your coffee order. Black. No sugar. I never knew that before. Day 2. Did I ever thank you for anything? I can't remember. Day 3. I had a dream last night. You were in a cell. I was outside. I couldn't open the door. Day 4. Marcus asked about you today. I didn't tell him anything. I don't know why I didn't trust him. Day 5. The dreams are getting worse. I see documents. I see his signature that's supposed to be mine but isn't. What did I do? Day 6. I looked at the finance reports today. Really looked. Ethan, I think we need to talk. Day 7. I know you're not eating these, but I'm going to keep making them because I think I spent 6 years not feeding something that mattered, and I don't want to starve it anymore. Your wife. I read that last note 3 times in my rented office. The morning light slanting through the blinds. Your wife. She kept using that phrase, even in writing, even when there was no one around to hear her say it. It was as if the words belonged to someone else using her hands. The system had no explanation. It only flagged her behavior as a continuing anomaly and advised me to maintain current course. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was changing, not into a threat, but into something I hadn't expected, a variable I hadn't accounted for, a piece on the board that was moving on its own, and the board was about to get very crowded. That afternoon, I received a formal invitation to the quarterly Blackstone Group board meeting, sent to my personal email. Attendance was mandatory for all shareholders with voting rights. Marcus had signed the invitation himself. I smiled when I saw his name at the bottom of the email. He was inviting the wolf into the henhouse, and he didn't even know it. The meeting was in 3 days. I had 3 days to finish my preparations, to position every piece, to make sure that when I walked into that boardroom, I wasn't walking in as the man they remembered, the quiet husband, the invisible partner, the fool who signed whatever was put in front of him. I was walking in as Ethan Cross, majority shareholder, CEO of Cross Holdings, grandson of Victor Cross, and the man who was about to burn Marcus Holt's entire world to the ground. I pulled up the system interface and reviewed the evidence one final time. Wire transfers, shell companies, emails with Iron Ridge, insider trading records involving Gerald Finch. It was enough to put Marcus in prison for 20 years. It was enough to sink Iron Ridge Capital's reputation for a generation. It was enough to take back everything I had lost. But it wasn't enough to answer the question that had been gnawing at me since the night of the anniversary party. Who was the woman leaving lunch on my counter every morning? And what did she remember? I closed the laptop and stared out the window at the city below. The sun was setting, painting the skyscrapers in shades of copper and blood. Somewhere in the distance, Blackstone Group's headquarters stood among them, a tower of glass and steel that I had helped build and then been cast out of. 3 days. That was all I needed. Then the real game would begin. The 3 days before the board meeting passed in a blur of calculated moves and sleepless nights. I spent every waking hour in my rented office. A spare room on the 17th floor of a building that had no connection to either Cross Holdings or Blackstone Group. The walls were bare, the desk was borrowed, but the laptop on that desk contained enough ammunition to destroy 3 careers and 1 marriage. Marcus was accelerating. The system tracked 6 more wire transfers in 72 hours, each one routed through a different shell company, each one designed to look like a legitimate vendor payment. He was draining Blackstone Group like a man who knew his time was running out. And maybe he did know. Maybe he had sensed that something had shifted in the ecosystem of the company, that his protector, Vanessa, was no longer fully under his spell. He would have been right. On the second day, I sent Vanessa an anonymous encrypted file. No name, no return address, just a single PDF containing the 12 most damning transactions, complete with account numbers and timestamps. I wanted to see what she would do with the information. Would she confront Marcus directly? Would she take it to the board? Or would she do what she had done in my last life? Ignore the warning signs and trust the wrong person until it was too late. She didn't ignore it. That evening, I was watching the security feed from the Blackstone Group executive floor, a feed I had access to through a backdoor the system had helpfully provided. When I saw Vanessa walking toward Marcus's office at 7:43 p.m., the building was mostly empty. The cleaning staff hadn't arrived. Yet, she moved with the same cold, precise stride she used in every boardroom. But her hands were clenched at her sides. She stopped at Marcus's door, paused, then pushed it open without knocking. I switched to the audio feed. Vanessa, Marcus's voice, smooth and surprised. Working late. We need to talk. The door clicked shut. I've been looking at the finance reports, the real reports, not the summaries you've been giving me. A brief silence. I could picture Marcus's face. That carefully maintained mask of calm competence. In my last life, that mask had never slipped. Not once. I'm not sure what you mean, Marcus said. I mean these. The sound of papers hitting a desk. 12 separate transfers totaling $4.7 million. All routed through shell companies. All authorized using my signature stamp. And all leading back to an offshore account connected to Iron Ridge Capital. Care to explain? The silence that followed was longer this time. Much longer, when Marcus spoke again. His voice had changed. The warmth was gone. What remained was something cold and calculating. Where did you get these? That's not an answer. You're right. It's not. Here's an answer, Vanessa. I heard the creak of a chair as he stood up. You don't want to go down this road. You really don't. Are you threatening me? I'm advising you. As someone who has spent the last 3 years cleaning up your messes, you think Blackstone Group would be where it is without me. You think any of these board members respect you because of your business acumen. They respect your last name and your husband's money. Money that's almost gone. By the way, the only reason this company is still standing is because I've been keeping it upright. If you start digging into those transfers, you're going to find things you don't want to find, things that implicate you. I leaned forward in my chair. This was the moment in my last life. Marcus had used this exact strategy, gaslighting, deflection, the subtle threat of mutually assured destruction, and in my last life. Vanessa had backed down. She had apologized for doubting him and gone home to pour herself a glass of wine and pretend everything was fine. But this was not my last life. Things that implicate me. Vanessa repeated. Her voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. You're saying I'm involved in this. I'm saying the paper trail leads back to your office, your signature stamp, your authorization codes. If this goes public, you'll be just as exposed as anyone else. Another silence. I held my breath. Get out. The words were ice, pure, crystalline ice. the kind that formed in the deepest part of winter and never melted. "Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my building. You're fired. Marcus, effective immediately. Security will escort you to your office to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials will be revoked within the hour." "You can't do that." Marcus's voice cracked. The mask was slipping now. "I have a contract. I have shares. You have nothing," the board gave me emergency termination authority 6 months ago. "I never used it because I trusted you." She paused. "I was wrong." The audio feed caught the sound of a door opening and footsteps entering. "Security? Probably." Marcus started to protest, but his voice was cut off as he was physically removed from the room. I heard him shouting in the hallway. Something about lawsuits, about retaliation, about how Vanessa would regret this. The shouting faded. Then there was only silence. I sat in my rented office, staring at the screen. Vanessa Cross had just fired her CFO, the man she had trusted more than anyone, the man she had chosen over her own husband in my last life. The system pulsed. Secondary node complete. Enemy ally removed from position of power. Reward unlocked. Full access to Iron Ridge Capital internal communications. Additional data. Marcus Holt's termination has triggered accelerated timeline. Iron Ridge preparing hostile takeover attempt. Estimated action within 48 hours. 48 hours. That aligned almost perfectly with the board meeting. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from the company. He had been the advance agent for a full-scale takeover. Now that he had been removed, Iron Ridge would have to move faster. With less preparation, they would be desperate, and desperate enemies made mistakes. I closed the laptop and rubbed my eyes. Outside the window, the city was dark now. The skyline reduced to a constellation of office lights and traffic signals. I had been working for 18 hours straight. My body was running on caffeine and adrenaline, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. I arrived at the penthouse just after midnight. The lights were off except for a single lamp in the living room. Vanessa was sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, staring at nothing. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the coffee table in front of her. She didn't look up when I came in. "I fired Marcus," she said. "I know. How do you know?" She turned her head, and I saw that her eyes were red, not from crying. Vanessa Cross didn't cry, but from exhaustion, maybe, or the kind of stress that hollows you out from the inside. "I have my sources." She let out a sound that was almost a laugh. "You have sources, my husband, who spent 6 years never asking about the business, suddenly has sources." She picked up her wine glass and took a long drink. I showed him the transfers. He didn't even deny it. He just threatened me, told me I would go down too if I pushed. And the worst part is, he might be right. My signature stamp, my authorization codes, everything traces back to me. If this becomes a criminal investigation, I could be looking at charges, conspiracy, fraud, maybe worse. I walked over and sat down in the armchair across from her. "You didn't authorize those transfers. I know that. You know that. But do you think a jury will believe me? The Ice Queen of Blackstone Group, the woman every business magazine calls ruthless, they'll say I was in on it from the beginning, that I used Marcus as a front. That won't happen. How can you be sure? Because I have the evidence that clears you." Vanessa went very still. The wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "What evidence?" Marcus's personal emails, his correspondence with Iron Ridge Capital, recordings of him discussing the scheme with his contacts. In several of those conversations, he explicitly states that you know nothing about the transfers and that he's using your signature without your knowledge. It's all documented. She set the wine glass down carefully, as if it might shatter. "How long have you had this?" "Long enough. And you didn't tell me. I needed to see what you would do, whether you would protect him, whether you would try to bury the evidence, whether you were the woman from my..." I stopped myself. The word memories was on the tip of my tongue, but I wasn't ready to have that conversation. Not yet. "Whether you were the woman I thought you might be." Vanessa looked at me for a long moment. The lamp cast shadows across her face, making her look older and younger at the same time. Older, because of the exhaustion. Younger, because of the vulnerability she was letting me see for the first time in 6 years. "I've been having dreams," she said quietly. "Every night. Sometimes during the day too. If I let my mind wander, I see things that don't make sense. A prison cell, a courtroom, documents I don't remember signing. And you're always there, but not the you who's sitting in front Of me now? A different you. A you who looks at me with. She stopped and pressed her fingers to her temples. With what? With the eyes of someone who's already dead. The words hung in the air between us. Outside, the city hummed its endless night song. Inside, there was only the sound of our breathing and the weight of everything unsaid. You're not crazy, I said. The dreams are real. They're memories, not yours. Not exactly, but fragments of something that happened, something that would have happened if things had gone differently. That doesn't make any sense. I know, but it's the truth. I stood up. You should get some sleep. The board meeting is in 2 days. Marcus is going to retaliate. He's going to try to destroy you before you can expose him. And when he does, I need you to be ready. Ready for what? I looked down at her. This woman I had loved, hated, mourned, and now regarded with something I couldn't quite name. She was not innocent. She had neglected me, marginalized me, allowed Marcus to poison our marriage and our company. But she was not the murderer I had believed her to be. The order for my death had been forged. Just like the transfers, she had been a victim too. A different kind of victim. One who had been too blind to see the knife until it was already in her back. But blindness was not the same as innocence. And I was not ready to forgive. Ready for the end, I said. Whatever that looks like. The next morning, there was no lunch bag. On the kitchen counter, Vanessa had left early. A note on the counter in her precise handwriting. Meeting with legal team. Preparing for board session. Thank you for the evidence. V. Not your wife. Just V. The shift in language was small, but I noticed it. The memory fragments were getting clearer for her. She was starting to understand that something was deeply wrong. Not just with Marcus, but with the entire architecture of our marriage. The woman who had been leaving those notes was still there, but she was pulling back now, retreating into the familiar territory of professionalism. I wasn't sure if that was a good sign or a bad one. I didn't have time to dwell on it. The Iron Ridge internal communications I had unlocked through the system were far worse than I had anticipated. The CEO of Iron Ridge, a man named Dominic Voss, had been corresponding with Marcus for over 2 years. Their plan was comprehensive: drain Blackstone Group of liquid assets, drive down the stock price through strategic leaks and negative press, then acquire a controlling stake at a fraction of its true value. Once Iron Ridge owned the company, they would strip it for parts, sell off the profitable divisions, liquidate the real estate, and leave nothing but a hollow shell. Marcus was supposed to receive a $15 million bonus and a senior executive position at Iron Ridge upon completion. That bonus was now in jeopardy, which meant Marcus would be desperate to salvage something. Desperate men did stupid things, and stupid men made mistakes. At noon, Clara Jong sent me an encrypted message. Marcus was spotted at the Iron Ridge building this morning, met with Dominic Voss for 2 hours, left looking angry. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. I typed back, keep watching, don't engage, and Clara, make sure your passport is current. If this goes sideways, you might need to leave the country for a while. Her response came immediately, I'm not going anywhere. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in 3 years. I almost smiled. Clara was sharp. In another life, I would have tried to recruit her for Cross Holdings, but that would have to wait. The rest of the day was a blur of preparation. I contacted my grandfather's legal team and had them draft the paperwork for a hostile counter-acquisition. I moved capital into offshore accounts that Iron Ridge wouldn't be able to trace. I compiled the evidence against Marcus and Gerald Finch into a single comprehensive file. Emails, financial records, audio recordings, witness statements. If the board meeting went according to plan, that file would be in the hands of the district attorney by the end of the week. And through all of it, the black archive system hummed in the background, a cold presence at the edge of my consciousness. It didn't speak. It didn't offer advice. It simply watched and recorded, cataloging every betrayal, every lie, every moment of justice delayed and finally delivered. Current status: primary target Marcus Holt. Position weakened. Allies in disarray. Financial networks compromised. Secondary target Gerald Finch. Under observation. Evidence package complete. Tertiary target Iron Ridge Capital. Hostile takeover preparation in progress. Anomalous variable Vanessa Cross. Memory fragmentation at 47%. Behavior: cooperative. Trust level: unknown. Trust level: unknown. That about summed it up. I didn't trust Vanessa. I didn't trust anyone, but I was willing to work with her, at least until Marcus was destroyed. After that, we would see. The night before the board meeting, I returned to the penthouse to find the lights on and the smell of cooking drifting from the kitchen. I stopped in the doorway, momentarily disoriented. In 6 years of marriage, Vanessa had never cooked, not once. We had a private chef who came 3 times a week, and on the other nights, we ordered in or ate separately at our respective offices. But there she was, standing at the stove in jeans and a casual shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, stirring something in a pan. She turned when she heard me, and for a second, just a second, she looked like a completely different person. "You're home," she said. "I wasn't sure when you'd be back. What are you doing? Making dinner? Pasta? It's not complicated." She gestured toward the counter, where 2 plates and 2 wine glasses were set out. "I thought we could eat together, before tomorrow, before everything changes." I didn't move from the doorway. Why? Because I've been remembering more, not just dreams anymore. Actual memories, clear ones. I remember the anniversary party. I remember you not signing the papers. I remember, she paused, her hand tightening on the wooden spoon. I remember a version of that night where you did sign them, and everything that happened after, the trial, the verdict, the phone call I got 6 months later, telling me you had died in your cell from what they called natural causes. Her voice broke on the last word. The wooden spoon clattered into the pan. She turned to face me fully, and I saw that her eyes were wet. "I didn't order it," she said. "Your death. I didn't order it. Marcus forged my signature on the authorization. I found out 3 days after you were buried. And when I confronted him, she touched her throat, a reflexive gesture. He killed me too, made it look like an accident, a fall down the stairs of our own home." The kitchen was silent except for the hiss of the stove. I stood, frozen in the doorway, processing what she had just said. In my last life, Vanessa had died too. Murdered by Marcus after she discovered the truth. She had been a victim, just like me, a different kind of victim, but a victim nonetheless. "That's why I'm remembering fragments," she continued. "The dreams, the notes, the lunches. It's like someone or something is giving me pieces of that other life, but only enough to hurt. Only enough to make me understand what I lost." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know you don't forgive me. I'm not asking you to. I let Marcus into our lives. I ignored you. I treated you like an accessory instead of a partner. Even if I didn't sign the order that killed you, I built the cage you died in. I know that." I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the counter. The pasta smelled good. Garlic and tomatoes and basil. Simple things, human things. "You're right," I said. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I understand now that you were a pawn in the same game that killed me. And I think the punishment you're living through, remembering just enough to feel the guilt, but not enough to change the past, that might be worse than prison." "It is." She turned back to the stove, her shoulders slumping. "Every night, I close my eyes and see your face in that courtroom. The way you looked at me when I testified. I didn't even know what I was doing. I thought I was protecting the company, protecting myself. I didn't realize I was burying you." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Some wounds didn't heal just because you understood how they were made. Vanessa finished cooking in silence. She served the pasta onto the 2 plates and poured the wine. We sat across from each other at the counter, and for the first time since our wedding night, we ate a meal together that neither of us was rushing through. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked, halfway through her plate. "Tomorrow, Marcus is going to walk into the board meeting and try to salvage his position. He'll probably present some version of events where you're the villain, and he's the loyal employee who discovered your crimes. He might even try to force a vote to remove you as CEO. Can he do that? He can try, but he doesn't know what I've been doing for the past week. He doesn't know about my grandfather's trust. He doesn't know that I've acquired 31% of Blackstone's outstanding shares through cross-holdings and my own investment network. Combined with my original 15%, I now control 46% of the company." Vanessa stared at me. 46%? That's more than me, more than anyone. It's more than you and Marcus combined. It's enough to override any vote he tries to force. It's enough to remove Gerald Finch from the board. It's enough to take control of the company and decide its future. I set my fork down, but I'm not going to do that. You're not. No, I'm going to let you remain as CEO. For now, the company needs stability, and you know how to run it. What I'm going to do is present the evidence against Marcus and Finch, have them removed and prosecuted. Then I'm going to use my controlling interest to block Iron Ridge's takeover attempt and restructure the board so that this never happens again. And after that, we'll see." Vanessa looked down at her plate. "You're not going to stay married to me, are you?" It wasn't really a question, we both knew the answer. The marriage had been over long before I died in that prison cell. The lunches and the notes and this dinner were not a reconciliation. They were an attempt to make sense of something that would never make sense, a goodbye that neither of us had been able to say in our last life. "No," I said. "I'm not." She nodded slowly. "I understand, and I'm not going to fight it. Whatever you need. The shares, the penthouse, the divorce settlement. I won't contest any of it. Consider it the first real thing I've given you in 6 years." I finished my pasta. The sauce had gone cold on the plate, but I ate it anyway. Outside the window, the city glowed against the night sky, and somewhere in that city, Marcus Holt was lying awake, plotting his final desperate move. Tomorrow, he would walk into the boardroom thinking he still had a chance. He had no idea what was waiting for him. When I went to bed that night, I slept in the guest room again, but this time, I didn't lock the door, and in the morning, there was a lunch bag on the counter. The note inside said only 4 words, "For after the meeting. Your wife." The morning of the board meeting, I woke before sunrise. The guest room was dark, the city outside the window still wrapped in that gray half-light that comes just before dawn breaks. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, running through every variable in my head. The evidence files, the share percentages, the contingencies. In my last life, I had walked into this same board meeting as a defendant in all but name. A man whose fate had already been decided by people who saw him as an obstacle. This time, I was walking in as the judge. I dressed carefully, navy suit, white shirt, no tie. The signet ring on my finger caught the light as I adjusted my cuffs. My grandfather had told me that people in this city would recognize it. Today, I was counting on that. When I stepped into the kitchen, Vanessa was already there. She wore a black suit with sharp lines, her hair pulled back in its usual severe knot, the Ice Queen armor. But her eyes, when she looked at me, were not the cold, distant eyes of the woman I had married. They were tired, human, afraid. "The legal team confirmed everything last night," she said, handing me a cup of coffee. "The evidence package you sent them is airtight. Marcus's personal emails, the Iron Ridge correspondence, the forged signature samples. It's all admissible. The district attorney's office has already been notified. They're sending investigators to the meeting." "Good." I took the coffee. "What about Finch?" "Finch is still in the dark. He thinks he's walking into a routine quarterly review. Marcus told him the restructuring vote was still on track." She paused. "Marcus called me last night. 3 times. I didn't answer." "What did his messages say?" "The first one was threats. The second one was bargaining. The third one." She pulled out her phone and handed it to me. The screen showed a text. "Message from an unsaved number. You think you've won. You haven't. By noon tomorrow, you'll be the one begging." I handed the phone back. "He's bringing Iron Ridge to the meeting. Dominic Voss himself. Probably. They're going to try to force a vote. Can they do that? They can try. But they don't know about the shares I've acquired. They don't know about cross-holdings. They think they're walking into a room full of people they can intimidate." I set down my coffee cup. They're wrong. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the executive conference room on the 40th floor of Blackstone Tower. I arrived at 9:40, early enough to watch the other board members trickle in. Gerald Finch was the third to arrive. A portly man in his 60s with a practiced smile and nervous eyes. He nodded at me as he took his seat. I nodded back. He had no idea that his name was already on the evidence file, that his insider trading records had been forwarded to the DA's office, that this would be the last board meeting he ever attended as a free man. By 9:55, the room was nearly full. 12 board members sat around the long mahogany table, plus Vanessa at the head and an empty chair for Marcus. The legal team occupied seats along the wall. Clara Jong was there too, sitting in the observer section with a notepad and a carefully neutral expression. She caught my eye for half a second and gave me the smallest possible nod. At 10 o'clock exactly, the door opened and Marcus walked in. He was not alone. Behind him came 3 men in dark suits. I recognized one of them from the Iron Ridge internal files. Dominic Voss, CEO of Iron Ridge Capital. He was tall and gaunt, with the hollow cheeks of a man who had been hungry for power so long that it had physically reshaped him. The other two were lawyers, expensive ones, judging by their watches and their confidence. "Apologies for the delay," Marcus said, his voice carrying that same smooth, sympathetic tone he had used when he handed me the pen at the anniversary party. "I brought some guests who have a vested interest in today's proceedings." Vanessa stood up. "This is a closed board meeting. Marcus, guests are not permitted without prior authorization." "Then consider this prior authorization." Marcus pulled a document from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Under Article 12 of Blackstone Group's charter, any shareholder controlling more than 15% of voting stock may call an emergency session to address concerns about executive leadership. Iron Ridge Capital currently controls 18% of Blackstone's outstanding shares, acquired over the past 6 months. That gives them the right to be here. A murmur ran through the room. Several board members shifted in their seats. Gerald Finch looked at Marcus with barely concealed relief. Reinforcements had arrived. Vanessa picked up the document and scanned it. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her fingers tighten on the paper. These share purchases were not disclosed to the board. They were made through a holding company. Perfectly legal, perfectly transparent. "If you know where to look," Marcus smiled. "But we're not here to discuss share acquisition technicalities. We're here to address a crisis of leadership. Vanessa Cross has systematically mismanaged this company for years. She concealed financial irregularities, authorized questionable transfers, and as of 3 days ago, she illegally terminated a senior executive without board approval. I am calling for a vote of no confidence. If the motion passes, I will assume the role of interim CEO until a permanent replacement can be selected." The room erupted. Board members started talking over each other, some defending Vanessa, others demanding explanations. Gerald Finch was already nodding along with Marcus's words like a puppet whose strings were being pulled. Through it all, Vanessa stood at the head of the table, silent and still, her face a mask of professional composure. I waited. Timing was everything. Let Marcus make his speech. Let him believe he was winning. The higher he climbed, the further he would fall. "I have evidence," Marcus continued, raising his voice over the chaos. "Evidence that Vanessa Cross personally authorized the transfer of nearly $5 million to offshore accounts. Evidence that she used company funds to finance a lifestyle far beyond her means. Evidence that her husband," he turned and pointed at me, "that Ethan Cross, was complicit in the scheme, which is why she fired me when I discovered the truth. She was protecting him, protecting herself, protecting the carefully constructed fiction that she is a competent leader." All eyes in the room turned to me. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just looked at Marcus with the same calm, unreadable expression I had worn since the night of the anniversary party. "Well," Gerald Finch said, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "do you have anything to say for yourself, Ethan?" I stood up. The room went quiet. Not because anyone expected me to say something important. They didn't. They went quiet because there was something different about the way I moved. Something that didn't fit with the image of the quiet, invisible husband they had all learned to ignore. I walked to the head of the table. Vanessa stepped aside, yielding the floor without a word. I turned to face the board. "Marcus Holt has told you a story," I said. "It's a compelling story. The loyal CFO who discovers his CEO's corruption and sacrifices his own position to expose the truth. It would make a good movie. Unfortunately for Marcus, it's a lie, and I can prove it." Marcus laughed. A short, dismissive sound. "This should be entertaining. Please, Ethan, enlighten us." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small remote control. The conference room's main display screen flickered to life behind me. "Let's start with the financial transfers," I said. "Marcus claims that Vanessa authorized them. But here's something interesting." I clicked the remote. A series of wire transfer records appeared on the screen. 12 separate transfers totaling $4.7 million. All authorized using Vanessa's signature stamp. But look at the timestamps. I zoomed in on the timestamps. The room leaned forward collectively. Transfer number 1, authorized at 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday night, when Vanessa was at a charity gala with 200 witnesses. Transfer number 4, authorized at 3:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Transfer number 7, Authorized while Vanessa was on a flight to Tokyo, with no access to her office or her signature stamp. Transfer number 9. Authorized during a board dinner where Vanessa never left the table. I turned to face the board. Someone was using her stamp without her knowledge. Someone who had access to her office after hours. Someone who knew exactly when she would be out of the building. Marcus's smile had frozen on his face. This is circumstantial. Anyone could have accessed her office. You're right. Anyone could have, but not anyone had the access codes to the company's wire transfer system. Not anyone had the authority to approve payments above $1 million without secondary verification. Not anyone had a relationship with Iron Ridge Capital that went back over 2 years. I clicked the remote again. Emails appeared on the screen, dozens of them. Correspondence between Marcus and Dominic Voss. Dates, subject lines, attachments. These emails were recovered from Marcus Holt's personal server. I said, they detail a 2-year conspiracy to drain Blackstone Group of assets, drive down the stock price, and deliver the company to Iron Ridge Capital at a fire sale price. In exchange for his services, Marcus Holt was promised a $15 million bonus and a senior executive position at Iron Ridge. The room exploded. Board members were on their feet, shouting questions, demanding explanations. Gerald Finch had gone pale. Dominic Voss was whispering urgently to his lawyers, and Marcus. Marcus was staring at the screen with the expression of a man watching his entire life unravel in real time. These emails are fake, he shouted. Forged. He's making this up to protect his wife. They've been authenticated by 3 independent forensic analysts, I said calmly. The district attorney's office has copies, so do the SEC and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. But don't take my word for it. I gestured toward the door. Ask them yourself. The door opened. 4 federal agents walked in, led by a woman in a dark suit who held up a badge. Marcus Holt, she said. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent. The room went absolutely still. Marcus backed away from the table, his eyes wild, looking for an exit that didn't exist. This is a setup. Dominic, tell them. Tell them this is a setup? But Dominic Voss was already being approached by 2 more agents who had entered through the side door. His lawyers were speaking rapidly, trying to negotiate, but the agents weren't listening. Iron Ridge Capital's hostile takeover had just become a hostile crime scene. You, Marcus snarled, turning toward me. His polished veneer had completely shattered. What remained was raw, animal fury. You were supposed to be nothing, a nobody. A man who signed whatever was put in front of him. How did you do this? I walked toward him. The agent stepped aside, giving me space. I stopped when I was close enough to see the sweat on his forehead, the tremor in his hands, the desperate calculations happening behind his eyes as he tried to find a way out. In another life, I said quietly, so only he could hear. You handed me a pen and I signed away everything I had. You framed me. You testified against me. You had me killed in a prison cell and made it look like natural causes, and you would have gotten away with it if I hadn't been given a second chance. Marcus's face went white. What are you talking about? What other life? One you don't remember, but I do. I stepped back and nodded to the agents. Take him. They handcuffed him and led him toward the door. As he passed the board members, he lunged toward Gerald Finch, his voice cracking. Finch, tell them you were part of this too. You can't let them pin everything on me. Gerald Finch stood up, his face a mask of panic. I don't know what he's talking about. I had nothing to do with any of this. Actually, I said. You did. I clicked the remote one final time. New documents appeared on the screen. Insider trading records, emails between Finch and Marcus, details of the $2 million Finch had profited from the scheme. Gerald Finch, the lead agent said, pulling out another pair of handcuffs. You're also under arrest. The boardroom descended into chaos. Some members were shouting. Some were already on their phones, calling lawyers, calling journalists, calling anyone who could explain what they had just witnessed. Through it all, Vanessa stood at the head of the table, watching the destruction of the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed her life. When the agents had finally led Marcus and Finch away, and Dominic Voss had been escorted out with his lawyers, and the room had settled into a stunned, exhausted silence, I walked back to the head of the table and faced the remaining board members. I believe we still have a meeting to finish, I said. The first order of business is the Iron Ridge Capital shares. As of this morning, Cross Holdings, a private investment firm that I control, has acquired 31% of Blackstone Group's outstanding stock, combined with my personal holdings of 15%. That gives me 46% voting control. I am now the majority shareholder of this company. No one spoke. No one dared. My first act as majority shareholder is to block any and all takeover attempts by Iron Ridge Capital. My second act is to nominate Vanessa Cross to remain as CEO, subject to a restructured board with new oversight committees. My third act is to initiate a full forensic audit of every financial transaction this company has made in the past 5 years. If anyone else in this room was involved in Marcus Holt's scheme, you have until the end of the day to resign. If you stay and the audit finds you, you won't get the chance to resign. I looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes in turn. Some were afraid, some were angry, some were simply stunned, but no one challenged me. No one even tried. That concludes the emergency session, I said. We'll reconvene in 1 week to discuss the restructuring. Until then, this meeting is adjourned. The board members filed out in silence. The lawyers followed. Clara Jiang was the last to leave, and as she passed me, she murmured under her breath, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Then it was just me and Vanessa, alone in the empty conference room with the morning sun streaming through the windows and the ghost of everything that had just happened still hanging in the air. Vanessa walked to the window and stood looking out at the city. Her shoulders were rigid, her posture perfect, but when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You did it. You actually did it. We did it," I said. "You fired him. You brought the legal team. You didn't back down when he threatened you. That took more courage than anything I did today." She turned to face me. The Ice Queen mask was gone. What remained was a woman who had spent 6 years building walls so high that she had forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. "What happens now?" she asked. "Between us?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the lunch bag from that morning. The note was still inside, unread since I had looked at it before the meeting. I unfolded it and read the 4 words one more time. "For after the meeting, your wife." "Now," I said, "we figure out who we are without Marcus. Without the lies, without the past hanging over us. Is that possible? I don't know." I opened the lunch bag. Inside was a chicken and avocado sandwich, cut into triangles, exactly like the one from the first night. I took it out and took a bite. It was good, simple, real. "The divorce papers are on my desk," Vanessa said quietly. "I signed them this morning. I'm not contesting anything. The penthouse, the assets, the settlement. It's all yours if you want it." I chewed slowly, swallowed, and set the sandwich down. "I don't want the penthouse. I don't want your money. What I want is something I'm not sure either of us knows how to give." "What's that?" "A reason to trust you again." Vanessa looked at me for a long moment. Then she did something I had never seen her do in 6 years of marriage. She sat down in the chair next to me, folded her hands on the table, and waited, not pushing, not demanding, just waiting. "I know I don't deserve that," she said. "I know I failed you in ways that can't be fixed with sandwiches and notes. But I'm not the woman I was in that other life, and you're not the man you were. Whatever happens next, whether we stay married or not, I want you to know that I'm grateful for the evidence, for the second chance, for not letting me go down with Marcus." I finished the sandwich. Outside, the city was waking up to a day that would be filled with headlines about Blackstone Group, about the arrests, about the collapse of Iron Ridge Capital's reputation. Reporters would be camped outside the building within the hour. There would be press conferences and legal proceedings and months of fallout. But in this room, in this moment, there was just the 2 of us. 2 people who had died in another life and been given a chance to be something different. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said, "but I'm willing to wait and see who you become." Vanessa nodded. "That's more than I deserve." She was probably right, but for now, it was enough. That evening, I walked through the doors of my grandfather's mansion to find him waiting in the study, a glass of whiskey in each hand. He handed me one without a word. "I saw the news," he said. "Marcus Holt arrested, Gerald Finch arrested, Dominic Voss under investigation, Blackstone Group saved from a hostile takeover, and my grandson, who everyone thought was a nobody, turns out to be the majority shareholder." He raised his glass. "Not bad for a week's work." I clinked my glass against his and took a long drink. The whiskey burned going down, but it was a good burn, the kind that reminded you that you were still alive. It's not over, I said. The audit will take months. Iron Ridge will try to rebuild, and there are probably other people involved that we haven't found yet. There always are. Victor settled into his leather chair, studying me with those sharp gray eyes. But that's not what's on your mind, is it? It's her, your wife. Vanessa, the woman who would have let you die in another life. The woman who's been leaving you lunches and notes like a schoolgirl with a crush. He took a sip of his whiskey. What are you going to do about her? I don't know. Good. That's the right answer. If you knew exactly what to do, I'd be worried. He set his glass down. You know, your grandmother and I almost divorced 3 times in the first 10 years of our marriage. She threw a vase at my head once. Missed, thank God. She had terrible aim, but the sentiment was there. We worked through it. We chose each other over and over again, even when it was hard, even when we didn't like each other very much. What are you saying? I'm saying that forgiveness isn't a decision you make once. It's a decision you make every morning when you wake up and look at the person next to you. Some people earn it, some people don't. The question isn't whether Vanessa deserves your forgiveness. The question is whether you can imagine a future where you're happy, and whether she's part of that picture. I stared into my whiskey glass. The amber liquid caught the light from the fireplace, swirling with colors that shifted and changed. I don't know what my future looks like, I said. I've been so focused on destroying the past that I haven't thought about what comes after. Well, Victor raised his glass again. Now's as good a time as any to start. Later that night, I returned to the penthouse. The lights were on. Vanessa was sitting on the couch, a book open in her lap, though. She didn't seem to be reading it. She looked up when I came in. I wasn't sure you'd come back, she said. Neither was I. I sat down in the armchair across from her. The same chair I had sat in 3 nights ago, when she had told me about her dreams. The same chair I had sat in when she had asked me if I could ever forgive her. I've been thinking, I said, about the lunches, the notes, the way you kept saying your wife. Instead of I, you said it was like someone else was using your hands. Like the words belonged to a different version of you. Vanessa set her book aside. It still feels that way sometimes. Like there are 2 of me. The woman who ignored you for 6 years, and the woman who remembers dying on the stairs of this penthouse, knowing that everything she had built was built on a lie. Which one is real? Both of them. Neither of them. She looked at her hands. I don't know anymore. The dreams are getting clearer. I remember the trial. I remember visiting you once. In prison, before they blocked the visits, you wouldn't look at me. I don't blame you. I don't remember that visit, I said. In my last life, I mean, by that point, I had stopped keeping track of who came and who didn't. I told you I was sorry. You didn't believe me. Would you have? No, she shook her head. No, I wouldn't have. We sat in silence for a while. The city hummed outside the window. The penthouse, which had always felt like a museum, beautiful and cold and utterly impersonal, felt different tonight, smaller, warmer, like a place where people actually lived. I'm not going to move out, I said. Not yet. The divorce papers can wait. The settlement can wait. I want to see what happens, who we become, whether there's anything left worth saving. Vanessa looked at me. Her eyes, which had always been so controlled, so carefully guarded, were wet. You mean that? I mean that I'm willing to try, not because you've earned it, not because I've forgiven you, but because I spent 6 years being someone I wasn't, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being someone who can't change. You're changing. I can see it. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it isn't. But I'm willing to find out. She didn't say anything. She just nodded, her throat working, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. The Ice Queen of Blackstone Group, reduced to silence by 4 words. I'm willing to try. I stood up. I'm going to make dinner. Pasta. The same thing you made the other night. It's my turn. I walked toward the kitchen. Behind me, I heard her stand up. Ethan. I turned. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. I didn't say you're welcome. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't okay. It might never be okay, but maybe, in time, it could be something else, something new. I just nodded once and went to boil the water. 1 month later, the forensic audit was complete. 3 more mid-level managers were implicated in Marcus's scheme and removed. Iron Ridge Capital, reeling from The criminal investigation and the collapse of its hostile takeover had been acquired by a consortium of investors, a consortium that, through several layers of shell companies, was ultimately controlled by Cross Holdings. Dominic Voss was facing trial. Gerald Finch had accepted a plea deal, and Marcus Holt, denied bail and facing 25 years, had sent 3 letters to the penthouse begging Vanessa to visit him. She had thrown all 3 in the trash without opening them. Blackstone Group was stable. The stock price had recovered. The restructured board was functioning. Vanessa remained CEO, though she had voluntarily reduced her salary and implemented new oversight protocols that made another Marcus-level betrayal nearly impossible. As for me, I had taken my grandfather's advice. Cross Holdings was now a visible entity, not a shadow operation. I had moved into a larger office, hired Clara Jiang as my chief strategy officer, and begun expanding into markets I had only ever studied. From the outside, my grandfather was still alive, still sharp, still dispensing advice in his smoke-scented study. The signet ring on my finger had opened doors I hadn't even known existed, and the lunches continued. Every morning, a new insulated bag on the kitchen counter, a new sandwich, a new note. Some were short. Good luck at the meeting today. Some were longer, fragments of memory she was still piecing together. Some were just single words. Stay, hope, tomorrow. I ate the sandwiches now, all of them. Was I still angry? Yes. Would I ever fully trust her? I didn't know. But anger and trust were not the only things that could exist between two people. There was also patience, also effort, also the strange, stubborn willingness to wake up every morning and choose to stay. One night, I came home to find Vanessa standing on the balcony, looking out at the city. The wind was cold, but she wasn't wearing a coat. She turned when she heard the door open. I remembered something new today, she said, something from the other life. The last thing you said to me before the trial. Do you know what it was? No. You said, I loved you. That was my only crime. I walked out onto the balcony and stood beside her. The wind cut through my jacket, but I didn't mind. I meant it, I said. In that life, I meant it, and in this life. I looked out at the city, the towers, the lights, the millions of people living millions of different stories. Somewhere out there, someone was making the same mistakes I had made, trusting the wrong person, signing the wrong document, losing everything because they loved too much and questioned too little. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was something else now, something I was still writing. In this life, I said, I'm learning what it means to love without losing myself. And I think that's a better kind of love. Harder, slower, but better. Vanessa reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cold. I didn't pull away. We stood there for a long time, watching the city lights blink and swirl. Two people who had died in one life and were slowly, carefully, learning how to live in another. Not to break. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 months after the board meeting that had destroyed Marcus Holt and reshaped Blackstone Group. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, delivered by courier to my office at Cross Holdings. My assistant set it on my desk with the rest of the morning mail and left without a word. She had learned not to ask questions. About the packages I received, some of them were legal documents, some were intelligence reports, some were things that didn't fit into any category she would recognize. I almost threw the envelope away without opening it. The handwriting on the front was unfamiliar, small, precise, but shaky in a way that suggested the writer had been under stress when they wrote it. But something made me pause, a feeling, the same cold prickle at the back of my neck that the black archive system gave me when it was about to flag something important. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, and a photograph. The photograph showed a man in a prison jumpsuit, sitting at a metal table, his hands cuffed in front of him. Marcus Holt. He looked older than he had 3 months ago. His hair was grayer. His face was thinner. The smug confidence that had defined him for as long as I had known him was completely gone. In its place was something hollow, something desperate. The letter was written in his handwriting. Ethan, I know you won't read this, but I'm writing it anyway, because there's nothing else to do in here except think about everything I destroyed. I've been thinking about the night of the anniversary party, the way you looked at me when you put the pen down. You knew. You already knew everything I had done, everything I was planning. I don't know how you knew, but I've stopped trying to figure it out. Some things are beyond explanation. The lawyers are working on my appeal, but we both know it. Won't go anywhere. The evidence you gave the DA was perfect. Every transaction, every email, every recording. You didn't just beat me. Ethan, you erased me. My money is frozen. My contacts have abandoned me. Iron Ridge is gone. Absorbed by some shell company that I can only assume you control. Dominic Voss took a plea deal last week. He'll be out in 10 years. I'll be in here for 25. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I won't get it. I'm writing because I need to understand. Something, when you stood in that boardroom and looked at me, you said something about another life. A life where I handed you a pen and you signed. A life where I framed you, testified against you, had you killed in a prison cell. You said I didn't remember it, but you did. What did you mean? Was it a metaphor, a threat, or was it something else, something real? I've been dreaming lately. Dreams that don't feel like dreams. I'm in a courtroom. I'm on a witness stand. I'm lying under oath while you sit at the defendant's table and stare at me with dead eyes. And then I'm somewhere else. A parking garage, handing an envelope to a prison guard. I wake up and I can still feel the envelope in my hand. I can still smell the concrete and the exhaust fumes. Are these dreams or are they memories? Did I kill you in another life? If I did, then maybe I deserve everything that's happening to me. Maybe this is justice. Not the kind that happens in courtrooms, but the kind that happens somewhere else. Somewhere that keeps score across lifetimes instead of years. I don't expect you to answer this letter. I don't expect anything from you at all. But I needed to write it. I needed someone to know that I'm starting to remember things I shouldn't be able to remember. And that I'm sorry, not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. In this life, and whatever other life exists in the back of my mind. Marcus Holt. I read the letter twice. Then I read it a third time, more slowly, paying attention to the places where his handwriting shook, the places where the pen had pressed harder into the paper. He was not lying. He was not trying to manipulate me. Marcus Holt. The man who had spent years weaving lies so smoothly that even I had believed them, was genuinely breaking. The system pulsed in the corner of my vision. Target Marcus Holt. Status update. Memory fragmentation detected. Level 12%. Source. Secondary system imposed penalty. Note: all primary betrayers receive memory implants upon system. Archival. This is not mercy. This is the punishment. I set the letter down on my desk and stared out the window. The city spread out below me, towers of glass and steel catching the morning light. 3 months ago, I had stood in a boardroom and watched Marcus be led away in handcuffs. I had thought that was the end of it. The final chapter of a story that had begun the night I died in a prison cell. But the system was not finished with him. It had implanted fragments of memory into his mind, just as it had done to Vanessa. The difference was that Vanessa's fragments had come early. While she still had time to change, Marcus's fragments were arriving late, when he was already buried in a cell with nothing to do but rot and remember. That was the punishment, not death, not even prison. The punishment was knowing what he had done, knowing there was another life where he had succeeded, knowing that in some impossible, unexplainable way, the man he had murdered was now the man who had destroyed him. I picked up the photograph of Marcus in his prison jumpsuit and looked at it for a long moment. Then I placed it back in the envelope with the letter, sealed the envelope, and wrote a single word on the front: archived. I would not answer him. I would not visit him. I would not give him the closure he was desperate for. That was part of the punishment too. That afternoon, I had lunch with my grandfather at his mansion on the North Shore. Victor Cross was 83 years old now, and the doctor said his heart was weakening. But you wouldn't know it from the way he still commanded every room he entered. He sat at the head of the dining table, a napkin tucked into his collar, eating roast chicken like a king holding court. "You got a letter from Marcus Holt," he said. It wasn't a question. "How do you know that?" "I still have sources, people who watch things for me." He took a bite of chicken and chewed slowly. What did he want? He wanted to know if he killed me in another life. Victor paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. Then he set it down and looked at me with those sharp gray eyes. "And what did you tell him?" "Nothing. I'm not going to answer." "Good." He nodded once, firmly. Men like Marcus Holt don't deserve answers. They deserve to sit in their cells and wonder. Wondering is worse than knowing. Wondering eats at you from the inside. He said he's been having dreams, memories, fragments of the other life. Victor's expression didn't change. "Is that possible?" "I think so. The same thing happened to Vanessa. She started remembering pieces of what she did, what she didn't do. In the other timeline, it's part of the punishment. They remember enough to feel the guilt, but not enough to change what happened. And what about you? Victor leaned back in his chair. Do you dream about the other life? I thought about it. The truth was, I didn't, not anymore. The first few weeks after my regression, I had dreamed about the prison cell every night. The buzzing light, the cold floor, the poison crawling through my veins. But those dreams had faded over time. Now, when I closed my eyes, I dreamed about the present, the deals I was negotiating, the companies I was acquiring, the future I was building. Not anymore, I said. Then you're healing. Victor picked up his wine glass. That's good. Healing is the part of revenge that nobody talks about. Everyone focuses on the moment of triumph, the boardroom, the arrest, the look on your enemy's face when he realizes he's lost. But what comes after, when the applause fades and the headlines move on to the next scandal and you're left alone with yourself? That's the real test. And what's the answer? The answer is that you keep living. You don't let the revenge become your whole identity. You use it as fuel to build something new. He pointed at me with his fork. You've done well. Cross Holdings is thriving. Blackstone is stable. You've got a good team around you. But I want to know, are you happy? The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to give an automatic answer. Yes, of course, everything is fine. But the words didn't come out because I wasn't sure if they were true. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm satisfied. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but happy. I'm not sure I remember what that feels like. Victor nodded slowly. That's the cost. Revenge has a price. And the price is that you have to live with the person you became in order to get it. That person is harder than you used to be, colder, more calculating. Those qualities are useful in a fight, but they don't make for a joyful life. He set his fork down and folded his hands on the table. You need to find something that makes you happy. Ethan, not satisfied, not successful, happy. Otherwise, you won the battle and lost the war. That evening, I drove home through streets slick with the first rain of autumn. The penthouse was quiet when I arrived. Vanessa was working late at the office. She had been doing that more often lately, throwing herself into the restructuring with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. I understood. She was trying to prove something to the board, to herself, to me. The insulated lunch bag was on the kitchen counter, as it had been every morning for the past 3 months. I opened it without thinking and pulled out the sandwich inside. Turkey and Swiss on sourdough, my favorite. The note was tucked beneath it, written in Vanessa's now familiar handwriting. I remembered something new today, not from the other life. From this one, our first date. You took me to that terrible Italian restaurant on the waterfront, the one with the checkered tablecloths and the wine that tasted like vinegar. I ordered the wrong thing, and you gave me half of your pasta without me even asking. I think that was the moment I started to fall in love with you. I don't know when I forgot that moment, but I remember it now. Your wife. I read the note twice, then I set it down on the counter and stared at it for a long time. Our first date. The waterfront restaurant. I remembered it too. It had been 7 years ago, before the marriage, before the distance, before the slow disintegration of everything we had built together. She had worn a blue dress. She had laughed at my terrible jokes. She had reached across the table and stolen a bite of my tiramisu with her own fork. And I had thought, this is the woman I'm going to marry. That memory had been buried under 6 years of neglect and a lifetime of betrayal. But it was still there, still real, still true. I sat down at the kitchen counter and ate the sandwich slowly, savoring the taste. Outside, the rain tapped against the windows. Inside, the penthouse felt different than it had 3 months ago. Warmer, more lived in. We had rearranged the furniture together last month, something we had never done in 6 years of marriage. And the new layout made the space feel less like a museum and more like a home. There were books on the coffee table now, a blanket thrown over the back of the couch, photographs on the mantle that hadn't been there before. When Vanessa came home 2 hours later, I was still sitting at the counter, the note in front of me. You're still up, she said, hanging her coat by the door. I thought you'd be asleep by now. I was waiting for you. She walked over and saw the note on the counter. Her expression flickered. Uncertainty, hope, fear, all in rapid succession. You read it, she said. I read all of them. I know. But this one was different. This one wasn't about the other life. It was about us. The real us, before everything went wrong. I remember the restaurant, I said. The wine really was terrible. She laughed. A real laugh, surprised out of her. It was the first time I had heard her laugh in years. The sound of it hit me somewhere in the chest, in a place I had thought was permanently numb. It was the worst wine I've ever had, she said, but the pasta was good. The company was better. She sat down on the stool next to mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain continued to fall outside. The city lights blurred through the water-streaked windows. Victor asked me today if I was happy. I said finally. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know. Vanessa nodded slowly. That's honest. I've been thinking about it all evening. About what happiness would even look like for me now. For a long time, I thought happiness was about getting revenge, destroying Marcus, taking back the company, proving to everyone that I wasn't the man they thought I was. I did all of that, and it felt good for a while, but it didn't feel like happiness. It felt like satisfaction, like justice, like closure, but not happiness. What does happiness feel like? I looked at her, at this woman who had been my wife for 6 years and a stranger for most of that time, at the woman who had been given the same cruel gift I had been given, a second chance, a memory of another life, a reason to be better than she had been before. I think, I said, it feels like this, a quiet night, a good sandwich, a note from someone who's trying. I think happiness isn't the big moments. It's the small ones, the ones you don't notice until they're gone. Vanessa reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were warm this time, not cold. I want you to be happy, Ethan, whether that's with me or without me. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I want you to know that I'm not going to stop trying. The notes, the lunches, the memories. I'm going to keep doing all of it. Not because I expect you to forgive me, because it's the only way I know how to be the person I should have been all along. I looked down at our hands. Her wedding ring was still there, a simple gold band that matched my own. We had never taken them off, even during the worst of it, even when we were strangers sharing a penthouse. I got a letter from Marcus today, I said. Vanessa stiffened. What did he want? He's starting to remember the other life, what he did. He's dreaming about the courtroom, the trial, the prison guard. I paused. He asked me if he killed me in another life. What are you going to do? Nothing. I'm not going to answer him. I'm not going to visit him. I'm going to let him sit in his cell and wonder. That's his punishment, not prison. The punishment is knowing. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I used to think that punishment was about making someone suffer, but I think it's more than that. Punishment is about making someone understand what they did, really understand it. Not just the facts, but the weight of it, the consequences. Marcus didn't understand that in the other life. He killed you and walked away like it was nothing. But now he's starting to understand, and that understanding is going to eat him alive. Yes, I said. It is. The months passed, autumn turned to winter, and winter turned to the first tentative days of spring. Blackstone Group completed its restructuring and posted its first profitable quarter in 2 years. Cross Holdings expanded into international markets, acquiring competitors and consolidating power. My grandfather's health continued to decline, but he remained sharp, still dispensing advice from his study, still watching over the empire he had built. Clara Jiang had become my right hand at Cross Holdings, a brilliant strategist who treated every deal like a chess match and never lost. She asked me once, over drinks after a late meeting, why I had trusted her back when she was just a marketing director at Blackstone. Because you were the only person in that company who ever looked at me like I was a human being, I said. Everyone else looked at me like I was Vanessa's accessory. You looked at me like I was Ethan. That's not much of a reason. It was enough. Clara raised her glass. To being seen. I clinked my glass against hers. To being seen. As for Vanessa, we were still married. Still living in the penthouse. Still navigating the strange, fragile territory between the past and whatever came next. She had stopped referring to herself in the third person months ago. The notes in the lunch bags were now signed simply V. The memory fragments had stopped coming as frequently, and when they did come, they were less painful. She had integrated them, she said, accepted them. They were part of her now, but they didn't define her. We had not yet decided whether to stay married. The divorce papers she had signed were still in my desk drawer and signed by me. Sometimes I took them out and looked at them. Sometimes I put them back without opening them. It was not indecision. Exactly. It was patience. It was the understanding that some questions couldn't be answered quickly. Some wounds needed time to close. One evening in early April, I came home to find Vanessa standing in the living room, staring at something on her phone. Her face was pale. "What is it?" I asked. She handed me the phone without speaking. The screen showed a news article from the state prison system. Inmate Marcus Holt found dead in cell. Apparent suicide. I read the article slowly. Marcus had been found by a guard during morning rounds. He had hanged himself with a bedsheet. He had left a note, but the prison officials had not released its contents. The article speculated about his state of mind, citing unnamed sources who said he had been experiencing severe nightmares and had requested psychological counseling multiple times. The system pulsed in my vision. Target Marcus Holt. Status: deceased. Cause of death: self-termination. Memory fragmentation had reached 94% at time of death. Punishment complete. File closed. He remembered enough, Vanessa said quietly. At the end, he remembered all of it. Yes. And it destroyed him. Yes. She took the phone back and set it on the coffee table. Her hands were trembling. I could have ended up like that if my memories had come later, if I hadn't had time to change, if you hadn't given me a chance to be different. But you did have time, and you did change. Because of you. Because of you. I corrected. I didn't change you. Vanessa, you changed yourself. I just didn't stand in your way. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen since our first date at that terrible Italian restaurant on the waterfront. It was not love, exactly. Not yet, but it was the possibility of love, the seed of it. The hope that it might grow again, if we tended it carefully. I want to renew our vows, she said. The words hung in the air between us. Outside, the city hummed its endless song. Inside, the penthouse was quiet and warm. Our vows, I repeated. Not the same ones, new ones, better ones. Vows that mean something, vows that we actually keep. She took a step toward me. I know I don't deserve a second wedding. I know you might never fully trust me, but I want to stand in front of whatever God or judge or witness will have us and promise to be the person I should have been from the beginning. Not because I'm trying to erase what I did, because I'm trying to build something better on top of it. I was silent for a long moment. In my mind, I replayed the years of our marriage. The good moments, few and precious, buried under the bad. I replayed the trial, the prison, the poison. I replayed the anniversary party, the pen in my hand, the decision not to sign, and I replayed every lunch bag, every note, every small gesture that Vanessa had made over the past months. She was not the same woman who had let Marcus into our lives. She was not the same woman who had testified against me in another life. She was something new, something scarred but still standing, something broken but still trying to mend. And I was not the same man. I was harder. Yes, colder, sometimes. I had done things in the name of revenge that the old Ethan would never have been capable of, but I had also learned things: patience, discernment, the difference between justice and cruelty, the value of a second chance. I'm not ready to renew our vows yet, I said. Maybe I will be someday, but not yet. Vanessa nodded. Her expression didn't crumble. She had learned, over these months, not to expect immediate forgiveness. I understand. But I'm not leaving, and I'm not signing the divorce papers. Not today, maybe not ever. I reached out and took her hand, the same hand I had held at the altar 7 years ago. We're not the people we were. We're not even the people we were 6 months ago. Let's see who we become, together, one day at a time. She squeezed my hand, one day at a time.